Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Andrew Bennett. I'm one of the pre-sales consultants here at Fronde, and I'll be running the webinar today in conjunction with my colleague, Dean Evitt, who's one of our principal consultants. There's time for questions at the end of this webinar, so please do use the chat panel and question panel down in the bottom right-hand side of the screen to put forward any questions, and I'll work away on those as Dean is presenting to you. We do recommend for you to close all your other apps just to ensure that you do have the best webinar experience, and please turn your volume up as to a level that's comfortable for you. Now, just before we start and I hand over to Dean, let me just briefly recap what Salesforce is and what it is there to do. Now, Salesforce is a market-leading software as a service or cloud computing application focused primarily on customer relationship management and Salesforce automation. And what Salesforce allows you to do, accessing your customers' data through the cloud, is centralize all of that information, all of those interactions, so you can service, segment, and sell to your customers using a rich interface and utilizing standard best practices for engaging with your clients. Now, at this point, I'll hand over to my colleague, Dean, as I said, who's one of our principal consultants working in the Salesforce practice here at Fronde, who has a vast amount of years of experience and capability working on the Salesforce platform and implementing the solution. And he's going to take you through best practice journey on how to implement Salesforce within your organization. Over to you, Dean.
Okay, thanks, Andy. And hello, everyone. I'll just give you a quick little background about myself. I work for Fronde in Auckland, and I've been in IT for a number of years. My background's in business analysis, but for about the last 5 years, so I've been working as the Salesforce functional consultant. So now my position at Fronde is principal consultant. I specialize in Salesforce functional consulting and delivery as well. So a bit of a broad cross section. I've been about since the very early days of Salesforce in New Zealand. So I sort of feel like I've had quite a bit of experience. I've worked on lots of different projects from the really big ones down to the small ones. So today I'm going to share some of my thoughts about implementing Salesforce at small to medium-sized businesses. So this is really aimed at people who are considering using Salesforce CRM, but don't perhaps work for a company that necessarily knows a lot about delivering software projects, and they may not know where to start. So I'm just going to talk through some of these things at quite a high level. So when I talk about SMBs, when I think about SMBs and what makes them different to a delivery project at an SMB to a larger enterprise or corporate size organization, is that SMBs are, they've got some things that are advantageous to them, so they're often less complex, less resistant to change. Quite often we see a lot less project bureaucracy, so you don't have a whole lot of project governance to go through to get a software project off the ground or even rolled out. On the other side, things that can make it a bit of a challenge sometimes is smaller budgets, sort of smaller timelines as well. People want to get going and get things done very quickly. So we've got some tips for getting that done. Sometimes less experience with projects, so often when we're in that SMB space, some of the stakeholders we deal with don't realise what's behind and actually deploying software as opposed to just purchasing the licenses. Okay, so they're my top tips. I've already revealed them on the front screen, so there we go. We'll just run through them. We've got discovery, define your future state, agile is king, simple is good, and leverage your investment in the platform. So I'm just going to run through those tips now. And I should have control of the slides. Thank you. So my first tip, it's all about discovery. Okay, so this is a given for larger software projects. I mean, it's something that always happens. A big software project can't go ahead without discovery. Sometimes smaller companies don't realise that it's necessary or very important. So we just like to point out that it is still a must-do in the software Salesforce rollout. It's a must-do, but do just enough. It doesn't need to be a massive exercise. It's just enough to understand the background, enough to understand where you are now, and so you can get to where you want to go. Okay, so discovery is about identifying the problem and the desired outcome, and in my slide I've said identify and agree. So agree is a really important point here. Often we find that if we can get all the stakeholders to talk about what they think the problem is, we find that there's a bit of disagreement sometimes, or people aren't quite aligned with what the problem is, or what their desired outcomes are. So going through a process to formally identify that just aligns everybody, and it aligns the both all the stakeholders, the users and everything, plus the services partner that you're going to use to actually do the deployment. And we like to start talking about outcomes as in realizing the benefits of your new CRM, rather than just saying the outcome is we want to implement a new CRM. That's not really an outcome. The outcome is, say for example, we want better visibility of our pipeline within 10% of our actuals, or something like that. So start thinking about problems and what outcomes are in terms of the business benefits. Okay. Something else in discovery is, oh sorry, can you go back? Is we need to understand the current landscape. So that's about defining your current processes at a high level. So normally there we're talking about you know, what processes are you enabling with Salesforce? If we're talking about Sales Cloud, we're normally talking about your lead to order processes, or processes. So it's a good idea to have a look at them, particularly around where there's a customer interaction, and understand how you currently do things. Again, this doesn't need to be costly or time consuming. You're sort of, you know, and you're in the ballpark of, you know, 3 to 5 days for a piece of work like this, just to, you know, to do that background planning. This information is also obviously very useful to quantify or understand how much it's going to cost to roll this out before you start, which is, you know, obviously pretty key for SMBs with small budgets. Okay, so moving on. Okay, next tip is define your future state. So I liken this to build or developing concept drawings for a new house or a building or something like that. You know, you can't get somewhere without having at least a high level concept plan of where you want to go. Okay. Again, we're not saying do it to death. This doesn't need to be super detailed, but you do need to have a good roadmap of where you want to go. So when we talk about, you know, what are your processes going to look like, this is where I'm saying you know, you need to have a high level process model for the processes that are going to be enabled with Salesforce. Again, define your custom interaction points. You might have new ones. You might be deciding to use Salesforce Web to Lead or something like that, and try and get leads off your website. I mean, most people are probably doing that. It's a good example. So define all those interaction points. Again, with that Web to Lead example, you need this is going to help you identify your business change as well. So often when you're rolling out Salesforce or any CRM, it's not just new software that you're bringing into the business, it's you're asking people to change the way they work as well. If you're going to be getting leads from your website, you'll need someone to look at those leads when they come in, validate them, perhaps qualify them in some way, and then take an action after that. So that's a business change, not just technology. The definition of your future state gives you all a common understanding of your way forward, much in the way as you do discovery. It's and you get everybody to agree where you currently are at. Defining your future state allows everybody, all the stakeholders and other interested parties, to have a common understanding of where you want to go. And that's, you know, that's important for change management as well as getting the technology and the configuration right. It's also a point to manage your investment as you go on. You can look at how much you're spending and look at where you are now and where you still want to go to. Okay, moving on. So Agile is king. So Agile is, I'm not sure how many people are aware of this, it will give you a bit of a rundown. Agile is a generic term for a bunch of methods or frameworks for software delivery. There's a whole lot out there. There's some sort of common ones around at the moment. There's one called Scrum that people may have heard of. And it's used as a foil, or instead of the traditional methods of rolling out software in a waterfall or a big bang approach, in which you define everything up front down to the very nth degree, bottom everything out, and then build it. Okay, so the key argument of that is often at the start you don't quite know where you want to go at the very bottom level of detail. You also might want to change along the way. So we recommend Agile. We think Agile is a perfect sweet spot for delivering a Salesforce project where it's already close to what you want, and you're a fast-moving and less complex environment, so there's less likely to be project management, governance, or bureaucratic processes get in the way of doing doing an Agile delivery. Okay, so what is Agile? Probably a really good question. So it's an iterative incremental delivery. Okay, so as I said before, instead of designing, analyzing, and designing everything up front, getting it all signed off, going through the process, and then building it and rolling it out, you choose a piece of functionality, you build that, then and that typically might be a week or 2 weeks. We call that a sprint in Scrum. Then we demonstrate that back to the business or to the key stakeholders. We get feedback, we improve it, and then we repeat, and we keep doing that until everything's rolled out. Okay, so cool thing about this is if you're halfway through and you decide that something's now more important than something else, well, you can change, not a problem. Okay, whereas with a waterfall or fixed price or whatever approach, you're locked in from the beginning. The other cool thing is you're faster to market, so you're actually you can go live with each increment or each iteration. Okay, so you can bring this to your users faster. You might choose something, again, I'll go back to that with the lead example, you might decide to roll that one out first. Okay, so you can have that live while you're configuring the rest of Salesforce. Okay, a really cool side effect of iterative incremental delivery is that it drives adoption and buy-in. So we're involving the users and other key stakeholders a lot earlier in the process, actually in the build process, and we're getting them to think about it. So if you imagine in an SMB, you're going to roll out to 20 users. You might get 5 of them involved in the demos. So that already you've got, once you go live, you've already got 25% of your user base invested in it. They've perhaps they've contributed towards the design and had their say. They like it. They've gone through the journey, and now they're going to be your champions, and that's really going to help you drive adoption. Okay, so you look to leverage those people once you've gone live to help other people come up to speed with using the new software. Okay, so next tip, simple is good. Wish it was as simple as building a Lego house. It's not quite like that. Okay, so typically in most Salesforce projects, we find that Salesforce actually meets 80% of your requirements out of the box with some configuration. Okay, so I'm talking here about if you're using one of the clouds, so Service Cloud or Sales Cloud, perhaps Marketing Cloud even. Okay, so most projects is around 80%. We're saying for smaller businesses, try and make it 100. without code. Okay, so when I'll just give you a bit of background. When I talk about without code, we need to configure it, but we say we use clicks, not code. So we're not writing any new software. We're just configuring the existing functionality, tweaking it to fit your business. So that we're talking about, you know, changing page layouts, adding new fields, putting in validations, some simple workflows, you know, customizing that, or sort of configuring your web to lead forms and your email templates and stuff like that without writing any code. And what we do find is that you know, people, once they get this powerful Salesforce platform and they decide they need more than they may need, and they want to go down the path of some complex customizations that may not be necessary, particularly when you think about the maintenance, not just the build costs. So if you start writing code, it's not just going to cost you more money in the beginning. If that needs to change, well, you're going to have to get a specialized developer in to change that, rather than you know, a business analyst or someone who's done the Salesforce administration course that can actually make those changes. You've got to start talking about things like you know, mandatory unit testing. You need to look at having development environments and all sorts of stuff. So what we do recommend is, and we always question, is that do you really need it? Can you make a small change or compromise to your business process that means you can get where you want to go without writing code, which is going to save you money in the short and long term. It's going to save you some hassle, and it's going to reduce risk. So it's less likely to break if you've written some bespoke code. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so leverage your investment in the platform. So welcome to the cloud. So we recommend that you make the most of this opportunity to realize the benefits of the cloud, such as agility, spending OPEX, not CAPEX, multi-tenancy, no more managing infrastructure, all that stuff that you get with the cloud solution. Now, some of our customers don't select Salesforce because it's a cloud solution. Okay, so but you are buying a cloud solution, so we strongly recommend, after you've done, you know, the main things you want to do, rolled out your Sales Cloud, and you've got all your users up and running and they're loving it and everything's all fine and dandy, consider rolling out other Salesforce features that you're already paying for as part of your license, such as Service Cloud, Knowledge Base, Work.com. There's a whole lot of other features that are there and that you can roll out, that sort of functionality-wise. You've also got the Force.com platform as a service. Okay, it's included in your licensing. You can build out solutions to any other business problem on the platform in the cloud. So again, instead of going out and looking to some new sort of internally hosted system for doing workforce management or something like that, you can build that on the platform, or you can get a partner to build that on the platform, or you can look to the App Exchange. So the App Exchange is Salesforce's app store. Now they've got hundreds of apps there, big ones, small ones, free ones, expensive ones. You know, from as simple as real-time deduplication for free to a whole financials, you know, back office system on the Salesforce platform. Okay, so it's there. It may seem like a bit of a no-brainer, but you know, we're saying you're investing in this massive platform, this big piece of software. Use it as much as you can and make the most of your opportunity to move to the cloud. Okay, so just a quick summary, and then I think we can have any questions if there are any. So, in summary, do discovery. It's a must-do, but just do just enough. Okay, and that really does set the scene and the context for a successful project. Define your future state. Okay, so think about that as like concept plans or drawings for a new building. You wouldn't build something without drawings. It doesn't need to be to that minute level of detail, but you do need to know where you're going, and importantly, you have to have agreement between stakeholders where you're going. Seriously consider Agile. It's really good, and that you'll be free of a lot of the blockers that we find typically against Agile in the bigger enterprise. Keep it simple. Consider compromises instead of code. Try and make it 100%, and then leverage your investment. Make the most of the platform and your investment. So thank you. We'll go back to Andy, I think, unless we've got questions.
Hi there, thanks Dean. Andy here again. Certainly by the looks of things on the poll, we've just got a couple of very brief questions here. First one being, Dean, in your experience, what sort of average timescales are we looking at across the stages of the implementation?
Okay, for a small one, say, and you're just doing, say, for example, one cloud, so Sales Cloud, small business, say it's 20 to 30 people, you're probably looking for, maybe if you were doing discovery and future state at the same time, you'd be looking 3 to 5 days to do that, maybe 2 to 3 weeks to do the configuration, maybe less, maybe more. It's not an exact science, but around that, to do any configuration, to do some training, a little bit of documentation, all that sort of stuff. So you sort of think in terms of like a small one would be around the month mark. It can get smaller, and obviously can be a lot more complex as well.
Okay, that's thanks for that, Dean. And that's obviously typically quite a difficult question to answer, because obviously it will vary on a case-by-case scenario. So well done for fielding that. And as a part of the breakdown of the steps within that make up the overall time frame for implementation, would you say in your experience that there's one particular aspect to it that, generally speaking, either needs a lot more focus than others, or generally speaking takes a lot more time than everything else?
Well, I think, you do that upfront stuff, that's really important. Do your discovery and define your future state. Without that, you're going to be floundering. And it may be that you know it all in your head and you just need someone to help you to write it all down. So that's a really key area. It doesn't need to take, it's not the most time-consuming part of the project. Other things that you need to consider is the change aspect. Okay, so think about training. It's really important. Okay, you can, rolling out a new piece of software is awesome, but if no one uses it, then, well, you may as well not have bothered. So it's about thinking about the change management to actually get to those objectives. Think about outputs too, not just interaction. So think about the reporting and other information that you want to consume out of the system as well. That's sometimes overlooked until the end. And then you sort of find out, oh, we need this, and this, and it's good to know that up front. Okay.
Yeah, great. And I have to say that in my own experience, I found that I think that you're absolutely 110% spot on. That training in particular is something that is either very much overlooked or kind of gets thought of at the end, and it obviously has lots of ramifications for how people are going to use the system, and so therefore a lot of emphasis needs to happen on that side of things. So we've got another final question here as well. So we have just regarding risks and risk mitigation. So in terms of, again, of those steps and stages, Dean, within a typical engagement cycle, where do you see that a lot of the risks comes out, and what sort of strategies can you put in place, or you recommend putting in place, to mitigate those as much as possible?
Okay. So some sort of key risk in most projects is scope creep and changes during the project. Obviously, not knowing what you want up front, and then discovering halfway through that you're actually going in the wrong direction. So that's a real risk in a lot of software projects. And we mitigate that by using an Agile delivery framework. So it lets you do less analysis up front and then change direction as you go, reprioritize features as you go along. So you get halfway through and you decide that, hey, this piece is not actually as important as we thought it was, but we've got this new thing that we've suddenly come up with, well, you can change those sort of features around as you go through. And the other, another real risk, and I think I've touched on this, and so have you, Andy, is the change piece. You can get in there and you can do a great job and configure Salesforce. You can have it looking great and working perfectly. But if your users are resistant to it, don't like it, it's the wrong color or something, or just, don't want to embrace that change, then you're not going to achieve the benefits. Okay, so again, the agile delivery. So it's about managing the delivery. That can help that as well. Bring those people in. Consider training. Consider getting some change management consultancy as well, and deciding on what message you want to give to your users to get them on board.
Okay, so another great answer. Thank you for that, Dean.
I think maybe.
I was just going to say, just following on from that, then, what is the typical strategy then for dealing with situations whereby there are variations within a requirement in a project beyond what it was that was originally scoped out or maybe laid out within a statement of works? What's the typical engagement strategy for dealing with those variations?
Sorry, can you repeat that? Or you faded out halfway through?
Sorry. So yeah, satellite was moving overhead too quickly. We're just saying, really, just following on from that. You mentioned the fact that obviously quite often you get into a situation with a client whereby actually what it is that you are all of a sudden expected to deliver on, midway through a project is new requirements and new functionality, perhaps that the client has identified that they all of a sudden require. What would you suggest is the best way to actually deal with those changes? But particularly on the client side, what's the best way of approaching the vendor or the ISV to actually communicate those changes? And typically, what's the sort of steps and stages that happen with those variations? How do we actually go about rolling those out within the project?
Oh, okay. So it depends on the commercials, what type of contract you've got up front. What we try and do is have a little bit of flexibility in the commercial. So if there is a change, we can actually reprioritize part of the delivery, or reprioritize a feature rollout or a piece of functionality without having to go back and change the commercials and go through that whole governance process again. Okay, so if it's not going to have, if you want to do rollout, you decide you want to focus more on mass email campaign management than you do on say writing a whole lot of reports for the board or something like that, and they've got those two things, they've got no material impact on the budget, then hey, you can go ahead and change that without needing to recut the commercials. Obviously, if you've got a contract that talks more about deliverables and what's going to be done, and you need to change, well then you talk up front, and a good consultancy would be working with you so closely that they'd know anyway, and it's you'd obviously go through that normal process of scoping out the new piece of work and raising a change request or a new contract for that piece of work. But okay. I think the key thing is to, sorry.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. Sorry, thank you for responding to those very, very tricky questions. Actually, just being thrown at you.
That's all right.
I appreciate that, and hopefully, those of you on the line that asked those, hopefully you got a full enough answer to those. By all means, please, if anyone out there does have any other questions that we haven't had an opportunity to answer today, because unfortunately we have run out of time, please do submit those inquiries through to your local account representative. Some contact details are there for us on the screen if you don't already have the ability to contact us or have any contacts here already. But we certainly highly encourage you to reach out to us. I know that a lot of you on the phone here are already customers of ours, utilizing different parts of our solution portfolio. But certainly from a Salesforce standpoint, as you can see, we've got vast experience implementing Salesforce across a wide variety of different industry verticals and sectors. By all means, please jump onto our website. There you'll be able to see further information based on what Dean has discussed today about the top 5 tips for harnessing Salesforce innovation for your enterprise or the small to medium businesses. There's a whole host of collateral and case studies on there as well for you to get an understanding as to not only what are other businesses doing out there and how they're taking advantage of Salesforce, but also why it is that Fronde in particular is great for them. And by all means, the year is drawing out. Diaries will start to fill up soon. So please do get in touch, get in contact with our account executives and client executives, and get yourself booked in for a conversation or a meeting at some point very early on in the new year. And we will come out and see you and see how we can best help you reach your goals. So thank you very much for everyone taking the time out of your busy days to come along and listen along. Hopefully that was a lot of value to you. My name again was Andy Bennett, one of the pre-sales consultants here. Feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions off of the back of this conversation. Otherwise, I'd like to wish you all Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to speak to you all in 2014. Thank you.